Good afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at J. Moore Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, drop your comments and questions for my guest or myself into the comment box, and you'll see me turn my head from time to time to check. This week's guest, Shirlé Hale, a chef, cafe owner, cafe, Baltimore's Babies on Fire Cafe and record store. She is a food stylist and styled for Netflix, HBO, and Paramount Plus shows like the recent series Lady in the Lake, House of Cards, and We Own the City. A lifelong touring musician fronting a myriad of indie rock bands for over 35 years. A recent transplant to Portugal, she and her husband still manage the Stateside Cafe and run an internet indie radio station called Radio Plastique. Let's bring in Shirlé.
Hey, Dara.
Hi, good to see you.
Great seeing you.
Yeah. What I need to do is check. You're in Portugal. They're having some fires. Are you okay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We are luckily in Lisbon, where I live. Most of the fires are up north, about an hour and a half away from us up north. Unfortunately, all those that area up there is really just having a hard time. So we are lucky here. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're safe, but so many people through Californian areas are suffering with this weather, but nothing I'm
Yeah.
going to say or do is going to fix that today.
True.
Since there's 6-hour time difference from the States East Coast to you, I usually
5.
ask what's on your plate today. And now I'm going to say what was on your plate today because it's 7 o'clock your time. What were you busy doing?
Today, actually, I went out and met a friend, and we were doing some beading, making some jewelry things at a bead store, and then we went to have lunch. We did not have a traditional Portuguese lunch. We decided to go to I guess, a Vietnamese kind of restaurant called Bom Bao, which is
Oh.
good bao bread. And had some. What did I have? I had a sweet potato glass noodle stir fry with vegetables and tofu, which was delicious. And my friend had a tom kha curry.
Okay. Are you strictly vegan now?
No. I call myself a flexitarian. I'm kind of flexible with whatever's around. My husband actually, when I got home today at 5, he was already making dinner for me, which is a very special treat because I'm usually the cook of the house. So I came home and he was making a traditional Portuguese pasta dish with mushrooms and tomatoes, and then searing some tuna steaks. And the fish here is just unbelievable. Yeah, the seafood here is just, you can't beat it, and you can't beat the pricing. It's just a true gift every day.
Well, let's ask why Portugal. You were in Baltimore. You still have your fabulous cafe, Babies on Fire, and record store.
Yep.
Why? What was the inspiration to move to Portugal?
I guess the first thing was, I think the pandemic was a catalyst for us making this decision, and just going through that experience for us. Me and my husband have always been curious about living in another country. I lived in Spain back in '83, like a week after I graduated high school. I moved to Madrid and lived with my Spanish boyfriend for about 10 months. And then we broke up and I came back, went to college in Boston. And then, so we've always wanted to live in Europe at some point. And after the pandemic, we were kind of like, well, we own our business. We made it through, doing great. And we looked into Montreal at one point, and thought, well, maybe we'll move to Montreal, and that way we'll be really close. It's a 9-hour drive, back to Baltimore. But we didn't want to deal with winters there because they're just brutal, and all the ice and the snow and everything. So we started our next door neighbor in Hamden, where we own a house still, rented out. Our next door neighbor, she went on a Bumble date and came back the next day, and we were like, how was your date? And she said, it's not going to work out with the guy, but he was telling me about Portugal. And we're like, what's up with Portugal? And this was like 2021. So she's telling us all this stuff that he's talking about moving there, and it's easy to get a visa and all that stuff. So my husband and I started investigating, went on some websites, looked at YouTube, videos and stuff, and started going, this could be a possibility. Like, to get a visa to move here was very easy compared to other European countries. So joined some Facebook groups and, found out how to apply for a visa and everything like that. Our main reasons was like healthcare, the amount of money we were paying in the States for healthcare. If something major happened to us, we were very worried because we're, entrepreneurs, we own our own business. We're paying, just so much for our insurance, for our health insurance, and a huge deductible and stuff. So I was like, if something major happens with us, we might lose everything. So that was a main thing, was healthcare. And then, just living a easier lifestyle. And also, I'm going to turn 60 in January. My husband's 57. And so we were kind of like, you know what, let's do this now while we are young enough to get around, enjoy it, and not wait until we're 70, to do something like this. So, and we've been, lucky enough to be able to still have the cafe. We still run the back end of it. We do all the payroll, taxes, all of that stuff. We do the food ordering. We talk to our staff, every other day at least, if not sometimes every day. We can do video stuff with them, and because technology is awesome now to do that. So it's worked out. It's been wonderful.
Well, I think a lot of people are envious, and I'm not going to get too political, but a lot of people are saying, I'm getting ready to hit the
get out.
road,
Yeah.
to get out. And I understand the health issues and the insurance. And look, I know we're not on food, folks, but this is reality. The reality of it is, I have the best Medicare program. I got the best supplemental, and I don't pay for anything. I'm paying a lot, but I don't have to worry about paying 20% on an $11,000 procedure.
Correct.
All right. So you went to high school, Pennsylvania, Bucks County.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first food job? You were 15, and what was it?
Actually, I realized my very first food job was across the street from my house, my parents' house, at a pizza place. And I would go over there and just hang out in this little tiny pizza place. They had maybe four top tables in there and a jukebox. And I was, totally into music, and they played cool music. And then I would just kind of force myself on them to, like, let me fold pizza boxes and let me redo the, restock the ketchup bottles. And like, I was a pest, I was a total pest, wouldn't leave them alone. Every day I went over there, they started having me do things like folding 100 pizza boxes. And I would come back home with like pizza and be like, look, Mom, look what I got paid. I got pizza. I was like 12 years old. So, but my first real paying food job was at a dinner theater in our town in Huntington Valley. And it was called the Huntington Valley Dinner Theater. And I was a prep cook, and then worked my way up from prep to doing desserts, which was like huge strawberry shortcake. And then I worked my way into sous chef, and was the assistant to the main chef, who was this Russian woman who was like fear, everybody feared her, so she was like completely in control of that kitchen. We would serve 500 people a show and
Wow.
two shows a day. So we're talking mass volume of food, and peeling 500 eggs at a time to make, deviled eggs, egg salad.
Which brings
So
me to the point. What's the best way to cook a hard-boiled egg?
I still battle it. It's like the 12 minutes, and then cooling it, or do you let it sit? And then it's also the quality of the egg. Is it a fresh egg? Is it an old egg? Is it refrigerated? Is it room temp? There's so many variables, and I could not tell you like this way is foolproof. And then I just read the other day about people using their pressure cooker, like their Instapot, to cook perfect hard-boiled eggs where the shell just peels off. And I haven't tried it yet, but I want to. I have the pressure cookers.
Well, I just thought maybe a little tidbit along the line.
Yeah.
What was your
Yeah.
family table like growing up? I'm always curious about mom was a great cook, mom was a terrible cook, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to put a
My
lozenge
mom,
in.
oh, sure. My mom was from Texas, and my dad was from Oklahoma, although we lived in Pennsylvania. So they were very country, and also Depression era, babies. And so my mom, being from South Texas, we ate a lot of like Tex-Mex things she would make. So to me, she was a great cook. She was not a fancy cook. She was a solid Americana, growing up in Texas, and this is what we were eating. So she would make anything fried in a cast iron skillet, because she always had a skillet in the oven with bacon grease in it or Crisco in it, and it was always at the ready. She could just put it on the stove, and then we had fried chicken, we had chicken fried steak, we had chicken fried pork chops, we had potatoes every single night in some form or fashion, but every day they were different. It could be potatoes in a foil packet with a little pat of butter and salt and pepper and baked in the oven. It could be fried potatoes, it could be mashed potatoes, it could be potatoes in a skillet that she would do, or gratin kind of thing. She would make something called Spanish chicken, which is still one of my favorite dishes, where it's like a enchilada sauce in a pot, and then putting chicken breasts and chicken legs in, and then slow cooking that for like 2 hours, and then serving that on top of rice, just like a plain white rice. And with beans, she made a lot of beans as well. So we'd have tortillas all the time and beans. My dad's favorite food was Mexican food, so we ate a lot of that. And then when my father he was a truck driver, like a long haul trucker, and he'd be gone for, like a month at a time and home for 3 days. So when he was on the road, me and my mom, she'd be like, let's go have Chinese food. And I was like, yeah, my dad hated Chinese food. So we would get Chinese as a special thing, or she would try something like, here's a can of octopus. Like, should we try it? And I'd be like, let's try it. Let's try it, take it home. And, or whatever she called tofu, toad food. When I started in high school, I was like, I'm going to be vegetarian, and there's a health food store up the street. And I would bring home these things she never saw. So, but our table was basically home style, a vegetable, a potato, or starch,
Right.
and a meat cooked in some form or fashion. And my dad was a hunter as well. So when he was home, he would bring home venison or pheasant, and fish. He fished a lot. So, catfish and stuff like that. So we were pretty country.
Well, there's so much. I have tons of notes here. And I want to tell people that you are the trifecta when it comes to being an artist. You are an artist painter, which you're now has nothing to do with food, people, but it's just interesting. Okay. Um, okay. Babies on Fire Cafe and Record Store. So there are a lot of LPs.
Yes.
And what you're doing now is you're painting on the LPs.
Yes, I'm painting.
And they're
Yep.
great looking, absolutely fabulous. So follow her on Facebook. You got one?
Those guys hanging there. That's what that is. Old records that are unplayable, and I just make mandala art on them now.
So are you using, what type of materials are you using? Oil or are you using
Acrylic
acrylic?
paints. Yeah, like I'm in my little studio, so I have tons of jars of paint, all different colors, and just dotting tools and mandala tools, and just
Right,
it's very meditative. It's very therapeutic, I found.
right. So I said the trifecta. A musician. She went to the Berklee College of Music in Boston. She was a voice major and songwriting, which she's very much involved with right now. Then the cooking and the
Yeah. So
cafe.
the cooking part, when you think about it, if you know other musicians and a musician's life, you're trying to make that your life, right? You're trying to write songs, you're in a band, you're touring, whatever. Where do most musicians work? They work in food service. They're either front of house or back of house, because you always have a job when you come back from going on tour for 2 weeks or a month or a week or whatever, and you can come back and you can have your job. So I've always worked in food service, since I was 15, and, it was a skill I had. So, but my main goal was to be a famous musician, which didn't pan out because food took over my life. For as I always tell people, the harder I worked at music, the harder I tried. We get signed or something and try to make headway with that. I would do nothing in food, nothing. I tried little in food, and yet that was what made the money for me. It was bizarre. It's like I still wonder like how that happened in the universe. It was like the universe was like, no, you're not going to do that in music, but you're going to do this in food, and you're going to have a good time doing it, but this is what's going to make you money. So
Yeah. Last week we had Dennis the Prescott on. I don't know if you saw the show.
I did not see that one.
Okay. He was a musician, had been in England, blah, 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 Nashville. Wasn't feeling too great. Somebody says, you should take care of yourself. And he went to the library and got Jamie Oliver cookbooks, taught
Oh,
himself how to cook. Now, this was only like 7 years ago. He's
yeah.
now hosted Restaurants on the Edge, Netflix. He has 850,000 followers on Instagram. He's done 2 cookbooks.
You
You
know,
know,
I always
he's
say you never know where food's going to take you. That's my
well,
motto.
yeah. So let's talk about it. You became a personal chef. I'm going to
Yes.
cough here. I'm trying to suppress this cough. A personal chef, United States Personal Chefs Organization. I think I
Mhm.
saw on some
Yep.
of the information. And from that, you and your husband, when you came back to Baltimore, when you opened up Babies on Fire Cafe and Record Store, it was a dream for many years ahead of that. Wasn't that a thought 10 years prior to?
Yes. So when we were living, we left Baltimore in 98. We moved down to North Carolina, to Durham, Chapel Hill. And while we were down there in 2000, I started my personal chef business, and it kind of took off. And it was wonderful because we were still playing in band, we were still touring everything, so it was great to have all these clients. And I would say, I'm going to be gone for a month, let me pre-make your meals, stock your freezer, whatnot. When I get back, we'll just start up again. So in North Carolina, we were talking about David and not liking his jobs so much, as he was doing web design, graphic design, and was just like feeling like, I don't know if this is what I want to do. But what he loved doing was, he loved when he worked in record stores when he was a younger man. And we started kind of reminiscing about Louis Bookstore Cafe. If people remember Louis, on Charles Street, that was our hang. We loved that place. So we always thought, wouldn't it be cool to have a record store cafe, kind of like with that kind of similar vibe where you can hang out, get some food, if you want to look at some books, whatever, but it would be with records. So we were like, we could combine our two loves of food and music and try to make something interesting. So that's how that idea came about. And then we moved back to Baltimore in 2012, and I had to restart my personal chef service again because I left, sold all my clients down there to somebody, and then had to restart from scratch. And then that got really popular pretty quickly. And then in 2016, we opened Babies on Fire. We found a lovely little spot in a weird street on Morton Street across from Eddie's Supermarket in Mount Vernon. And we were like, this place is awesome. So we built out a kitchen, and I built out the kitchen. If you ever go in there and look through the fish bowl window that we have, you'll see the kitchen's pretty spacious. Like for a cafe, it's pretty big. And that was because I wanted to have space to cook for all of my clients. I had the cafe, but I still had my personal chef service. So I was cooking for, 12 to 20 clients a week in that kitchen, packing everything up and then delivering them out every day. So it was running the kitchen, running the cafe, and then running Babies on and running Four Corners Cuisine. So, and then the personal, and then the food styling thing happened out of the blue, and that was like, adding that onto my plate too. So,
I was just going to ask, how did that happen?
My friend Bob. Oh yeah, no worries. I hope your throat feels better. A friend of mine who was assistant prop master on House of Cards, a guy named Bob Spohr, who was also in the music world back in the 90s. He wrote to me one day, and I'd always posted photos of the food either in the cafe, but primarily my personal chef meals. I was constantly taking pictures on Instagram, Facebook, posting them up. And Bob wrote to me one day and said, "Hey, House of Cards needs a food stylist. Would you be interested?" And I said, "I know nothing about food styling at all. Like, I don't know what that means." And he said, "The pictures that you post of your meals is food styling. That's what you're already doing." And I was like, okay. And he said, "Is it okay if I give your contact info to the head prop master?" And I said, "Okay, fine." And then she called me up, and then we had a wonderful, 6.5-year relationship. And any show she got, I was the person. And I love her so much. Christina is her name. And she would text me, and everything always, when it was going to be a really hellacious kind of
shoot.
Yeah. She would say, "I need you to emotionally and mentally prepare for what I'm about to ask you." And I was like, oh God, here we go. What do I have to do now? It was like a food challenge every single time. You need to make 80 identical omelets for this scene. You're going to be on set and on the side doing this. We're going to bring you an outdoor grill to your house with the pans and everything, so you can practice before you come to the shoot. I'm like, okay, all right. I'm out there on my front porch in Hamden, people walking by. I'm like up there on my porch making omelets.
And the funny thing, Martha Hall Foose, who's cookbook author down south, and she was one of the food stylists on The Help.
Okay.
And in talking with her, I think what people don't realize, as you brought up, if they're having deviled eggs, there's 10 dozen of deviled eggs. They got to be switched out.
So many. Yeah.
So many. So,
yeah.
Jessica Chastain, forgive me, was vegan, and she had to eat fried chicken. So they had to come up with something that looked like fried chicken that was vegan.
Yeah.
So it's not so easy. That's not the food styling that I ever did. Mine was a cookbook author came, I prepped the recipes, I had it easy. But no, let's see. Some of the food scenes from House of Cards, ribs.
Ribs, had to do oh gosh, so much stuff. One scene was a huge cook. I had to have an assistant on site out in, it was like out in Gunpowder Falls or something. The shoot was at nighttime too. Um, there was a scene where the very wealthy man, like Kevin Spacey, he goes to California, and there's this like kind of like Illuminati scene where these men are in hoods and robes, and they're having this like bonfire of an effigy and whatnot. So they were supposed to have this very fancy dinner, and I had to make T-bone steaks for everybody, 80 of them, and side dishes. Yeah, and side dishes, right? So we get everything set up. We have like a huge table and all the plates, and the actors aren't going to be eating this in reality. So it's okay if it's just sitting there, they're not really going to be eating. So the director comes back and we have everything ready to go. And he's like, I need you to make those look eaten. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I need you to make them all look like they've been sitting there eating. We're pushing the shoot up further in the scene. So please make them look eaten. So me and my sister are just cutting, chunks of steak off and throwing them into a big pan. And, and I'm sitting here thinking, I don't want this food to go into the trash can. Like, I don't want, like, people should be eating this food, So my assistant started making little foil packets of the stuff. And we were just putting them in this fridge and telling the staff, like, hey, your crew members, like, there's T-bone steaks in here, like, please take it home. So that happened quite a bit of just not getting,
Right. Well, you had a change of pace for Lady in the Lake, which is just recently aired on, what was it, HBO?
It's on, was it HBO or was it? There's so many streaming things I can't even remember anymore.
Well, Lady in the Lake. And that takes place in the 60s. So whatever food you're doing, I take it you had to do some research to go back and see what was the food du jour of that
Yes.
era.
Yeah. One of the scenes for that was it was supposed to be like when I watched the show, you can't really tell it's the next day, but at the country club where the main character, her life exists, she goes to this country club and they have a big Hanukkah dinner. And then the next day they have this secret, like, seafood, non-kosher meal. It's like a seafood over the top thing. And they're all in costumes. It's like, I forget what they called it. It was like something, the sea under the stars or something. And so I had to make a huge amount of 60s looking seafood, buffet, with nets and like, treasure chest and crabs and lots of crabs in the scene. Of course, the PETA came in and said there cannot be any live crabs in the scene, or if there are live crabs in the scene, they must be taken away live. And so I had to get crabs that were not steamed, that were already dead from Conrad's is where I got them, like 2 bushels of crabs, and but 1 bushel was steamed, the other were not. And, it was very stinky, because they're dead crabs in this bushel, but the actors putting them in a pot like they are alive, and they're not. And then I had to make Jell-O molds, like 1960s, with the veggies and the eggs and the shrimp and all that stuff. And I made them out of liquid glass. So they were not Jell-O molds whatsoever.
Really?
It's like epoxy. Yeah. So I bought silicone molds and I, mixed up the epoxy. It's like a 2-part thing, like a resin and a hardener, and then put in the peas and put in the hard-boiled eggs and just did that solid and then popped them out. And that way they wouldn't melt on set because I didn't know how long they were going to be sitting there. So, yeah.
Not with gelatin. I mean, there's all sorts of tricks.
Yeah.
Like I said, luckily mine were very simple. I think I did one with Dan for a giant commercial, and that was something else, working out of a truck on location.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Baby on Fire Record Store and Cafe, which is here in Baltimore for those tuning in, on Morton Street, which is just one of these odd little streets that you think might be an alley, but really is a street. And your building's historical, so you had certain limitations, didn't you?
Yep.
Talk about what you offer. Babies on Fire. We know that we have record albums. Vinyl's big again. So go for it.
We are open 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day. Sunday is 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We serve breakfast and lunch. We have a wide variety of, regular good old, eggs and cheese and bacon. And then we have vegan eggs. We have a ton of gluten-free stuff, vegan stuff, and regular stuff. We always have a different mac and cheese every couple weeks or every week. And they're always vegan as well. And they're always unusual, like a Singapore curry mac and cheese, or an everything bagel mac and cheese. Like, they're always different like that. We have paninis for lunch. We make our own seitan, which is a wheat meat spicy seitan panini called the Babies on Fire. We have bagels. We get shipped in from New York, from Brooklyn. We have pastries that come shipped in that they come frozen. They're not baked, and we bake them off. We proof them and bake them. They come from Montreal. We also have vegan croissants. Just a wide variety. We always have a soup in the fall, and then coffee wise, we use Open Seas Roastery, which is in Kent Island. We've worked with them for the last probably, I'd say, 6 years. 2 years before that, we did Stumptown out of Portland. And we have delicious lattes and specialty coffees. We have we make our own cold brew as well. So it's a good variety of foods and drinks.
And it's 7 days, and you have outdoor tables, and you have a carry-out window too as well.
But we did have the window, but since COVID, we had to have that window put in for COVID. So now we just have, you can come into the shop like old days, but the city has allowed us to keep our outdoor parklet. So we have a covered area with, flowers and tables and a lovely little area to eat outside or inside.
It's a perfect location. You're between Peabody Conservatory, the Maryland Institute of Art, and the University of Baltimore.
Yeah, lots of students come to our place. Very thankful for them.
A lot of art on the wall, the albums. You can go back and just trip your memories by thumbing through these albums.
Yep. I mean, I think we were one of the first record store cafes
there we are
in Baltimore. So, and we tried opening. We didn't try. We opened a second location in Fells Point next to Soundgarden record store. We opened like 2 months before COVID hit, and then the day that we were planning all this wonderful outdoor activity in that space, the city was shut down, and we struggled for a year to try to maintain it, try to make it work, and it didn't, because Daily Grind was already there, Pentango was already there, the neighbors, there was no tourist, and we would have been totally in the mix of the tourism, coming in to get a food, and we were open at night at that location and had a beer and wine license. So we spent a year struggling, trying to make that work, and then we had to shut it down. So that was sad. That was Baby 2 did not work. So.
Baby 2. But Baby 1 has a loyal clientele and great staff. So you can sit there and manage from Portugal and speak with them, and you got great staff in there. We've come to the time where I ask my questions at the end of the show. Tell me about the best piece of advice you would go back and give your 18-year-old self.
um, I would say to my young self to not be afraid of networking, not be afraid of um, putting yourself out there and promoting what you do. I was very, I was a wallflower back then and just very, just afraid to like really get out there. And I would, if I had something to change, I would change that about my 18-year-old self.
Okay. What's the best bite you've had all week?
Oh, my husband and I just found a new restaurant up the street from our apartment. And we went and had lunch there 2 days ago. And they made, hands down, in the year and a half we have lived here in Portugal, they make the best camarão com alho, which is shrimp with garlic, in this luscious white wine butter sauce with tons of garlic. And the shrimp are huge. It was the best thing. I mean, I was like, I don't even eat bread that often anymore, but I was like, excuse me, can I get the bread for this? Because the sauce is so good. So
Yeah, that is a good gumbo's garlic sauce.
yeah, garlic.
Two things that must be in your fridge.
Well, let's see. Indian an Indian curry paste, which luckily here I can still get like patak, the patak brand like curry paste. So I always have that in, and like a tom kha or a Vietnamese paste. Those two things I generally always have to have because you could just whip something up easy,
Right.
with that.
I like
Yeah,
them. I have Tom Young paste that I like using,
so good.
and I have beef faux paste that I'll throw to something if I'm doing beef. And okay, let me throw that in. Absolutely. Your ultimate culinary fail.
That would be personal chefing, and I was making a casserole for this client, and she had a gas stove, and I had put the casserole in the oven, and I had an assistant chef with me at this point, thank God, because it bubbled over, and it went in down into the where the flame is, under the
Right.
pan. It bubbled down there, and then I just happened to, out of my glass, the side of my glasses, I saw some flicker going on. And I was like, "What the? Oh my god!" And it's on fire in the oven, and I'm like, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" And I open up the oven, and it's flaming, right? And Drew, who had been a line cook, for years and years, he just grabbed this box of Morton kosher salt, just walked over. He said, take the casserole out. And I just got, towels, just grabbed it, pulled it out, and he just doused the oven with salt, with the kosher salt, and it went out. And then we had to spend probably about an hour. I had to find a screwdriver. The client wasn't home. She was at work. I had to undo the bottom of the thing. I had to clean the whole thing out, and I had him continue cooking whatever the heck we were cooking. And that was a lesson learned. I was like, after that, I'm putting up something underneath of a casserole. I'm not just setting that in there because I don't know.
No, haven't we all had something like that? I know I have.
Yes.
If you wake up tomorrow with a new talent, what would it be? You have so much talent in so many things. You paint, music, food.
I can do arts. I can do the arts. That's not a problem. The thing I wish I was better at, or I had the talent or the love of, is accounting. Doing numbers, doing doing banking. I hate it. I hate dealing with numbers, and I'm not good, but my husband is so good at that. And I look at him and I'm envious all the time that he can just sit there and do spreadsheets and Excel spreadsheet. I'm like, no, no. Like, that to me is hell. But I wish I liked doing that. I wish I was good at it. And I'm not.
As long as you can back them up a little bit, that's what's necessary.
Yeah. I have a book actually that I made that's how to live in Portugal. So in case anything happened to him, I have a book like how to do the payroll taxes, how to do
Very smart.
I have all he went through it and here are the steps. And once in a while he'll say, "Okay, you're going to do it this time." And I'm like, "No." And then it takes me an hour and it takes him 15 minutes, you know. But I'm just okay, next thing I got to click this. I got to click that.
No, it's really vitally important.
It is,
You
especially
know,
if we
if had anything happened to me and my husband was left, he would have been, because I
yeah.
do all the banking and stuff of that nature.
Oh, I
Um,
bow down to you. It's such a
uh,
skill.
yeah, we go forward. We manage. I try to tell friends. They go with my husband. I said you should learn it.
Yes,
You need to know where things are.
yes, totally.
My final question, Miss
Uh-oh.
Shirley, and before I forget people, as you know, I'm losing this here. How to connect with Baby on Fire Cafe is Babies on Fire Cafe. Babiesonfire.com for the website, Instagram and Facebook, Babies on Fire Cafe.
Yep,
Okay,
exactly.
it's in the notes, everyone. All right, Shirley,
Yes.
what didn't I ask you that I probably should have?
Well, we have the radio station you mentioned. We have an internet radio station. If you are, if you are of the age that you went and saw bands back in the 80s and the 90s, and you liked alternative indie rock stuff, or The Cure, or U2, or Devo, or any of that kind of stuff, and going forward, my husband and I have an internet radio station called Radio Plastique, and you can go to radioplastique.com. We have a website, we have streaming, and it's commercial free, and it's we have jazz show on there, we have an African show, we have blues show, and then everything else in between. So we've had that for about 3 years now, and it's another passion, you know.
Well, it is really a terrific site. The website is set up beautifully. And so if you're into music,
Mhm.
radioplastic.com.
Yep.
Well, Miss Hale Kowalski, I want to thank you so, so much for joining
Mhm.
us. And it was great catching up with you. Wish you all the best, continued success, good health, good health. And
And I will hear you.
everybody, Babies on Fire Cafe. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Dara. Thank you so much, and hope you feel better.
Thank you. Thank you. So do I. All right, everyone. So I'm just not feeling tip top today. So you've heard me cough a little bit. Let's cover next week's guest is Emily Walker, one of four sisters who have unraveled the culinary secrets behind our most loved restaurant meals and are sharing them in their cookbook, Favorite Family Recipes, Most Requested Copycat Dishes, 101 Homemade Versions of Your Favorite Restaurant Recipes, on bookstore shelves October 1st. You can pre-order. From the crave-worthy appetizers like Disneyland's jalapeno cheese stuffed pretzels and P.F. Chang's lettuce wraps to mouth-watering main courses like Mitzara pasta from the old spaghetti factory and Gino's East Chicago deep dish pizza. Then finish off your meal with decadent desserts like Marie Callender's chocolate satin pie or Nothing Bundt Cake white chocolate raspberry cake. Meanwhile, Nothing's Bundt Cake White Chocolate Raspberry Cake recipe is already up on jameworldliving.com's website. So if you want to give it a try, it's up there. Take advantage of that. As always, feel free to reach out to me. My email is food@jameworldliving.com or my Instagram is @DaraCooks. And on Facebook, I have started a Facebook page called the Food Enthusiast. Also, you can sign up at jmoreliving.com's website for a free This is the Week in Baltimore Eating newsletter that comes out on Tuesday. Go up to the menu, click on Connect, and you will see it there. So sign up and get all that's food from J Moore Living every Tuesday. All shows are immediately archived in video form on J Moore Living's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com. We truly appreciate it when you share our show with friends and family. Feel free to go back into our archives and enjoy past shows. May your plates always, always remain full, and I hope to see you next Thursday.